Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight Entertainment, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reaction commentary series. I'm Alexis and David. We're just longtime Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans, hoping to connect with anybody online that wants to talk endlessly about this show and keep it alive. This is a show geared toward longtime S.H.I.E.L.D. fans who want to come back and relive this series. This is going to be already the second episode of Season 2. This is called Heavy is the Head, which was written by Paul Zabezki and directed by Jesse Bochco. Guest appearances by, here are the ones that have already appeared. BJ Britt as Antoine Triplet. Ruth Negga comes back as Reyna. Henry Simmons as Alfonso Mac McKenzie. Adrian Pazdar returns as Glenn Talbot. Simon Cassianides as Sunil Bakshi. And Brian Patrick Wade as Carl Crusher Creel. And today we have the debut of Kyle MacLachlan. His debut, his official, I think, debut as, so far he's billed here as the Doctor, which is funny because that's the name of Fitz's alter ego seasons from now. But I don't think he was given a name this episode. His name is Cal, who is also a character from the comics. Interestingly enough. This was broadcast on September 30th, 2014. Fuck. Just realizing now that that's 10 years ago, obviously. You know, no sense of panic there whatsoever. Of course, returning the main cast, Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson, Ming-Na Wen as May, Chloe Bennett as Sky, Brett Dalton, Ian DeCastiger, Elizabeth Henstridge, and of course, Nick Blood. This was originally broadcast to 5.05 million viewers. And here is some more trivia here that I was able to find on the episode. As far as the critical, that's critical response. We talk about that after the fact. Okay, that's it for that one. We are not going to be able to read about any comments that were left behind. Oh, you know what? Here's some interesting information here. Let's give a moment to go back to Shadows. So Shadows, by the way, which was the last episode, we spent a lot of the commentary talking a lot about the lighting, how the scenes were shot. So we should probably, point out the cinematographer. So for that episode, I believe his name is Felix Parnell. What an amazing job you did. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Parnell also returns to be the DP for this episode, Heavy is the Head. So, yeah, amazing job there in that regard. So we're not going to have any comments this time around because there are not. There just are not any comments. And also, based on what David has told me, again, one of what has become kind of a surprise element of this show that I absolutely love is the fact that in many instances, David has not seen a lot of these episodes in such a long time that it may as well be the first time watching it again because there's a lot of gaps. When you have 7 seasons and 136 episodes of one show, there's a lot of room for a lot of gaps, especially if, when we first watched these episodes, especially this season, we were the 2014 versions of ourselves. That was 10 years ago. So it's time for a refresher, as it will. So I don't know. I right off the bat, I just really dug season 2 and how it just kind of gets going with it in a way that you can tell is a far more accelerated version of the show. We've already made several points that in season 1, they couldn't just immediately start jumping into it right off the bat because of this little Hydra thing and twist thing. But as we also have said, it worked in their favor because they were able to really establish a love for these characters and flesh them out for many episodes in a row. And now we get to see a version of the show where they can do both at the same time, where they can flesh out the characters and be entwined directly with a lot of the plot mechanizations that happen on the show. So I feel that season 2, these early episodes are kind of where it clicked, where it would really be the blueprint for the remainder of the series. Are you digging these season 2 vibes, David?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, thinking about it afterwards when we saw the first episode, I'm just more so curious about how I'm going to feel about Sky's parents, because I just don't really know how I felt about them when I first saw this. Obviously, it was just kind of like tragic the way they ended up, but the more I kept thinking about this either, the more I'm like, Whitehall.
Huh.
What a fucking piece of shit, man. Like, really think about it, like, what he did to Sky's mom. It's like, what the heck? It just makes it makes sense of why she would be so freaking evil.
It would, yes. But you know what it also does is it makes sense. Something that people had a lot of issues with, the decision Daisy made, all the way into the future in season 7. You know, Daisy, I feel like sometimes gets a bad rap because she has a very gung ho personality. Sometimes when she's so sure of herself, she can be too sure of herself, and then she can be glutton to making mistakes, and that's perfectly natural. She's not perfect; it's part of her character. She very much is prone to making rash decisions. But I feel like, when you remind yourself of everything that happened to her family and her parents, you would really understand why she would really not think too much about when they're in the future. When they're in the past in season 7, and she's like, we need to kill Malik now. We can't let this come to pass. We have a chance to eliminate Hydra. Now, I'm not saying she was correct. I'm not saying I agreed with her in the moment, but I think the important part is, can you understand why she was so ready to make a choice like that? Because yes, it would save so many people's lives. The fact that Hydra would like be dead here and then. But if the Malik family is gone, then a lot of the Hydra pockets would be gone too, and perhaps also she would be able to have her family back again. There is a version of this timeline that Sky Daisy would never have had to have been separated from Jiaying and Cal if it not for Hydra.
Mm-hmm.
And that really is the tragedy of all of this. And I feel like when we're, to me, Jiaying and Cal are a big, big reason why I love this season. Because of, I mean, I just genuinely believe they got the best actors to do those characters justice. Though the whole thing of like, where does Sky come from? Who are her parents? They were teasing that all last season, and I think they really delivered on the promise of what that would be in many ways. Because both of those actors, who we haven't even met yet, in the rewatch, are just going off of memory. I think we're going to meet one tonight with Cal, but they are fully realized characters. And then also, the bait and switch they pull. The bait and switch they pull may go down as one of the best they've ever done in the history of this show. But it also happens to really be another part of a pattern that is really just unfortunate for Daisy, because I feel like there's a joke that Fitz makes all the way in season. Well, not really a joke. It's kind of more of a jab. Daisy's really pissed at Fitz for cutting her open and removing the implant that Kasai has put on her. And of course, she takes over and she imprisons him. Like she puts him in a cell, and she's like, "I'm not gonna trust anything you say." And like, cause like you betrayed us and everything. And then Fitz kind of like jabs back, "Do you want me to recount all the times you did?" Because I think it happens at least once a season where she kind of, through, albeit very different set of circumstances every single season, she has kind of turned on the team. Mm-hmm. In season 1, it was the rising tide. In season 2, it's because she wanted to be with her mom. She didn't realize she was evil at that point. In season 3, it was Hive. In season 4, it was not necessarily
wasn't really a betrayal. It was just she wanted to go off on her own.
Yeah, she kind of wanted to go off on her own. And I believe that's it. I don't think there was a turn in 5 or 6 or 7. So it was just like, yeah, just trying to look at the history of the show, and oftentimes, the pattern with Daisy in these seasons is kind of her curse, and they established this early on how last season, when you go back and think about what they were establishing, how could never find a permanent home. From her perspective, the foster families rejected her again and again and again. When you go back and it was revealed, Shield was actually having her be moved around on purpose to make sure that the monsters, Jiaying and Kel, would never be able to find her. But because of that, I mean, while Shield was protecting her, it made her feel like nobody ever wanted her.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she gets picked up by Coulson and the team, she again, like, there's parts of her where she does not want to be lulled in by this new and up and coming family, I guess you can say, with Shield, but it happens. And then in this season, it kind of ends in disaster when she gets her powers, and they turn on her. Then she goes to Jiaying, and then she realizes they're kind of a cult and evil, and they want destruction. And then they turn on her, and then she turns again on the team, going into Hive, and then Hive turns on her. And it's just like part of the unfortunate tragedy of Daisy's character is that she's always looking for that home. And it for a lot of the show, it kind of like ends up falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of her, the other thing about her character is she continuously believes that when things get really, really like dark and bad, she removes herself from the situation, or she tries to throw herself into other things. So when she gets her inhuman powers this season, we're going to see her try to like avoid coming to terms with that and not really be thinking about that. That's when they bring in Andrew, May's ex-husband, to kind of like help her get through it. As you mentioned, when she goes off on her own, it was not so much because, you know, she felt bad about Lincoln dying, but it was more so about the fact that she did not want to endanger anybody else in her family, so she was removing herself from then on there. It's interestingly enough how when it comes to the 7th season, the only character that completely understands Daisy is Souza. And I think back to, I believe, is what is considered to be by many one of the best episodes of the whole show, As I Have Always Been. Part of what made that episode so special was the fact that was the I guess the real birth of like Duza, right? That's their like ship name, and the fact that they had only known each other for maybe days or weeks at that point. You know, they plucked them out of 1950, and now they're in the 80s. Well, they're in this time loop, but in that short time, he was able to clock her like completely, just like know the kind of person that she is, and yeah, I feel like with Daisy, she is a certain kind of tragic character in a lot of ways, and it's really interesting. I know this has nothing to do with this episode of this season, but last week I was watching Love in the Time of Hydra, the podcast with Jamie Durack, and Eric Goldman was the guest for episode 1, and what was interesting is, so Eric Goldman has a really interesting history. For the first like 4 seasons, he was covering and reviewing the show for IGN. Then he was working with Marvel for 2 years, and so he was on the inside. And then he was hearing some things, some secrets of the show well in advance before we ever saw it happen. So he was one of the first people that knew about the fact that they were going to make Daisy and Souza a thing. And he was like, what? That's interesting. Because I feel like, again, and consider how Eric Goldman was told about it. He was told this was happening. We found out for ourselves as we were watching the show. And again, we said to ourselves many times, like, oh my God, we were told in advance that we're going to do this. We were like, what? Like, that's not completely unexpected. But yeah. Daisy's. The one thing I always say is they found ways to keep her character interesting, and I feel like part of both why people love her and why some people love to hate her is because she is a very flawed individual. But I feel like the more flawed of an individual you are, the more interesting of a character you are you not?
Mm-hmm. And at least like
That's
those
how I read it.
flaws, like it makes sense for her character, like the certain flaws that she has, and she overcomes them throughout the show.
And to elaborate more on that, and not only specific to her, but when you extrapolate that to everybody else involved, there are a lot of shows that we have seen throughout the years that can make certain decisions based on, like, let's say, character choices that feel like they verge on character assassination or verge on jumping the shark. For the fact that this show made it to 7 seasons, now there may be some disagreement in the fans, who knows? I don't think this show ever came close to jumping the shark or doing something that is a complete betrayal of the characters that came in the prior seasons. Now, I'm sure some people will challenge me on that. I don't feel this is one of those shows where things came out of nowhere and it just wouldn't make sense. You know, having things make sense is a big part of having shows like this work, you know? And S.H.I.E.L.D., I think, consistently delivered amazing episodes. Mostly great episodes from this point going forward. I feel like they were a very successful TV show from the standpoint of every single week you would watch a new episode and they would deliver. And you would feel satisfied on a variety of different ways. And I think they always kept it interesting, and they always kept you on your feet because you would really not be sure what they were going to pull. Like, again, to be so just as a matter of fact about the idea that, oh yeah, in our last season, we're going to give Daisy a love interest, but finally it's going to be one that sticks, but it's the former love interest of Peggy Carter, and it's interesting, of course, when you think about this. Peggy Carter is a character that has a lot of significance to S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, she is referenced many times. She is the founder of S.H.I.E.L.D. We started last episode with her in 1945. I wonder, though. No, I don't wonder. I think we all know. But can you believe that 10 years ago when we first watched the second season premiere, last week's episode, season 2 opens up with an homage, if you will, to Agent Carter. But then by the time that the show would close, one of the key characters from Agent Carter's world would be plucked by the characters of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then not only be a main character, but end up being the true final romantic interest to the main character of this show. I just, like, again, on paper, you're like, what?
Yeah.
But when you're experiencing it and you're watching it, you know, through the whole arc of the show, it's like, it's interesting. To me, it's like, oh, it's like when you go back and watch the third episode of season 1 and they introduce gravitonium, or actually I should say, yeah, oh no, they when you go back to episode 18 of season 1 and gravitonium is reintroduced, but Glenn Talbot is introduced for the first time, and little did we know that was the beginning of a very long road that we would travel through years in the future. Mm-hmm. So I always like to point out those really interesting coincidences. And of course they are coincidences. It wasn't premeditated all that many years in advance. Because as has been mentioned by Clark Gregg and many people on the show, there were so many ideas that they wanted to do that never saw the light of day because they were shot down by Kevin Feige and company. Like, oh, you can't use that, or no, you can't do this storyline because we're going to actually do that in a movie. So there's a lot of, can you just imagine, like, this is such a really good show, but at the same time, there's probably like a whole book of ideas that they were ready to go with. Like, so many different versions of this show that could have existed, but it wasn't to be. So I'm sorry that became a rambling rant at that point, but I kind of got started on one thing and then I went all the way on the other. Anyway, season 2 is awesome.
Yeah.
I think let's go ahead and begin watching the next one, which, by the way, is very much, as I mentioned last time, a part 2 to the premiere. Like, to me, I feel like the first 2 episodes are pretty much like they're setting the stage for the season. So it's very much, and it picks up right where we left off, and I mean that quite literally.
It's not just N084, it's the first. And all Fury knew about was the trail of bodies that follows it.
Also, I'm not sure we spent too much time, but Lucy Lawless is flawless. Like, she brought a sense of real worldness to that character, and I think in an alternate reality, she would have been a really interesting permanent addition to the cast. But as has previously been stated, it was just not meant to be. And here is her corpse.
Hey. Can you hear me?
Oh God. That's it again. Look, there's blood. There's blood in Lance's teeth. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Also, there's blood all over the place. We need to, keep a running tab on the blood check because, of course, this had like 100,000 times more blood than any of the MCU films. It's funny to me, David, how this show always got like
Hartley in Idaho.
Dead. That's no use, he's jammed.
We have to get you out of here.
Thought of as like a kiddie show or like too much of a lighthearted show, but it always did a lot more violent imagery than I think people would ever think it would.
Bill has a damn thing to burn Hartley. You need to get him. Go!
Good luck.
Can you repeat your last part? Oh, sorry. I was really paying attention
No,
to the dialogue.
No, it's okay. No. Basically, I'm saying that the show is always a lot more violent than anybody would believe it to be.
Oh,
it was like a lot more violent than the movies. I mean, even that scene right there.
Sorry, that was really cool. I like the back and forth and all that. Really, just
yes.
We're going right off the bat on the second episode.
I don't know. That was Hunter. I wouldn't even have bothered getting up. I'm like, you got me. Mm-hmm. Just carry me out of here. Why would I walk myself?
He was trying to save Hartley.
And you're absolutely sure?
They're gone. It was bad, Coulson.
2 agents down, another captured.
This is so cool, by the way. Just picking up immediately after the last episode, and then May, like, I'm sorry, I don't like using this word, but doesn't she look so just badass with that damn bike and her just like chasing down Creel?
I mean, I'm sure part of them was kind of trying to go with the...
Do not engage. You copy? Do you copy?
I mean, this came out before, but Black Widow, when she was on the bike in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I don't know, maybe trying to go for something like that? I don't know.
Oh.
No, drop back. Do not engage.
Or maybe just bikes in general just look badass on people.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a bike, and then of course she's also a badass in general.
Negative.
We can't just let him go, Coulson.
Creel isn't working alone, and I want to know who he answers to. Drop back into surveillance mode now. That's an order, Agent May.
This is like one of the first times May was like trying to go rogue here a little bit. Mm-hmm. Really interesting. Because, I mean, she did have a point. Like, she could just take him out then and there.
Yeah.
5-alarm fire, otherwise known as Lance Hunter.
Is he
captured? But if he talks, our entire operation's compromised. We'll have to burn the base and evacuate. I know. And we just retiled the bathrooms.
The way he commits to these lines, man, no one does it better than him.
Yeah.
We just retiled the bathroom.
Just as I was dropping off to sleep. Thank you very much.
I love Lance. I'm sorry. I know Silva's not gonna like this part, but like everything he does just works. I mean, even just like him just joking around, like just as I was going off to sleep. He just knows how to have fun in the worst of situations, you know? And that's what I like about that character. Like, he's always, when things get heavy, like, he just tries to humor his way through it, which, yes, it's a defense mechanism, but I feel like with him, it's just genuinely how he feels about things. Like, he doesn't let, like, things get, unless unless it affects Bobby, who he loves, then he'll like go all fucking like rampage on you. But like for the most part, he keeps his head.
Let's take a peek under the hood.
Fitz would be crushed if he saw this. He's been working on cloaking since before.
She said while they're literally working in the corpse of his old laboratory. You wouldn't know it unless like it was pointed out to you. But this is the same room as Fitz and Simmons' lab from season 1. It's just been completely redone as Mac's garage because like that it's not used anymore.
Hey, Fitz.
Hey, what's up, man?
How are you?
So that's the
So it's like it's bad enough that they're actually like doing this behind his back. But now they're doing it in. I mean, I'm not saying that they're wrong for doing it. They have to do it, just to be clear about that. But again, it's like, and then look at how immediately. Look at the vibe here.
You know, you weren't that far off. Check out the transmitter core.
yeah, to negate the resonant the resonant? No.
Mac talks to him like a person
Yes.
that is not damaged at all. And then when you look at like Trip and Sky, they're like kind of like statues and they're awkward and like it's weird because like they don't want to affect him. They don't want him to feel like he's awkward or broken, but they don't know how to really handle him. But Mac is just like and maybe it's because Trip and Sky remember Fitz how he was, and Mac does not. And I think that's the difference. And I feel like also Mac is just kind of like a people person. And if you remember too, Mac has gone through his share of trauma that we don't know about just yet. So he brings a lot of qualities about him that people open up to him about. Or people open up to him in a way because he makes people feel like they're being heard.
It's like sometimes he's the same old Fitz and other times.
Not. No, I'll take your word for it.
There is a reason why he does become the future leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., you know.
Coulson. He's a vigilante. A zealot who'll risk anything to further his own agenda. But lucky for you, I've got a senator with very deep pockets that wants him. So you go ahead. Name your price.
So that also gives us a lot of clarity also. Talbot isn't stupid. Like, he knows Hydra's out there. But you're thinking also at the same time, okay, well, if Talbot knows this, why is he after Coulson more than he's after Hydra? He just said it out loud. There is a senator who is influencing him. He's basically reporting to a very high-ranking senator. And if you don't remember, David, that senator ends up being the brother of Grant Ward. And that senator wants Coulson out of the way so he can keep quiet and not come to light the fact that Ward's family has a Hydra Nazi. And of course, the fact that the senator is a politician who is soon going to be up for re-election. That's why he's kind of like amping it up to Talbot. Get this guy. Also, Talbot has his own reasons. Talbot doesn't really respect or understand Coulson. Talbot feels like Coulson is getting in his way. Talbot feels like, there's Betty Carter again. Talbot feels like Coulson is... I also do feel, I think he's a little bit insecure. I think on some level, Talbot understands that Coulson may in fact know things that Talbot does not, and it kind of maybe does not sit with him the right way. So there's a lot going on there.
I just wanted to report that Mac and Trip are working on cloaking, so I'm free if you want me back in the field.
That won't be necessary.
Also, it was not mentioned, but I really love Coulson's office. I love the light, especially that comes into the office. It's kind of a mood. It's like feels like fall. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just me. Oh, did you notice a little bit of the little toy behind him?
Toy.
Look behind him. Oh man, I think it was like I don't know if they're gonna show it again in shot.
I need to get back out there and help May take him down.
No,
She's my SO.
It was there.
I'm a field agent now, and I can handle myself.
that's not what this is about.
Then what is it
The
about?
jet
The
looking
object?
thing?
The symbols?
It's not just a jet. It's the bus.
Oh, okay.
It's the actual bus. It's like right behind him.
You need to loosen up. Try yoga or something.
I tried it, but
It's
I'm
hard to understand
really not
now, but if you recall,
But thanks.
I mean, Coulson does not feel good about keeping Sky in the dark, especially about the alien writing. But when it comes to the alien writing, he's not telling her because he doesn't. Remember, at this point in the show, all we know is that he and her share the fact that they were injected with 3H325. He is now writing on the walls because he saw the writing. He has noticed that when he showed Sky, she is not. And that's causing them to go like, well, what the fuck? Why did Garrett and me start writing but not her? So they're surveilling her at this moment to see what the hell is going on. But I don't think he wants to let her know anymore because he doesn't want to accidentally trigger causing the same things that's happening to him to happen to her.
There's a whole packet of research they just left laying about all willy-nilly for anyone to see.
That was almost a classic Fitzsimmons scene.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for the fact that you remember she's not really there.
Yep.
Okay, let me clear that. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
They were never really able to fix this here because I don't think you see Creel again until the next season, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But
What's the status on Creel?
He's been in there for over an hour.
they do mention the next time that he's the only one to survive, having come into contact with the obelisk. At some point, I think his system, they reveal in season 3 that his DNA at some point is able to break down the, I guess you could say the Terrigen, but it's able to break down even in the obelisk. Like, it's not going to get him eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's the absorbing man, and I think it's just naturally is just not going to affect him. But we don't know that yet.
Well, that and the money you owe me.
You're kidding, right? Because sometimes I can't tell.
No, I'm not. I want my pay. And not just mine either. I want Hartley's and Idaho's too.
Okay, now you're kidding.
It's for their families. I think they deserve something for their loss, don't you think?
I think he's being sincere, but the way that he said it was like,
It's like, I don't know if I can believe you, dude. Like,
Sounds like you're just blowing me off. You want to be alone? That's cool.
You know, I think I like him. He's honest.
remember, this is
Blunt, I'd say.
Fitz's
Cromwell,
mind.
see him.
No, he doesn't talk to you like the others. It's quite
So
refreshing.
Fitz can
actually.
automatically, whatever Simmons is saying, Fitz is thinking. So automatically Fitz likes him because of how he's treating him. He's not treating him like he was broken.
Does that have something to do with stopping Creel?
Yeah.
And he knows she's not there. That's why he had that face when he said, "Do you like talking to yourself?"
mm.
He won't admit it fully, but deep down he knows the truth.
Belonged to their mum. Died of breast cancer about 5 years back. Jane has it now too.
That's awful.
Yeah. Life can be a mean drunk that way.
You know, it's moments like this where it's like, this really is showing you, like, Lance is not just a mercenary for the money. Like, there's a lot more to him than what we initially perceive him to be. There's a good person in there. He's just been hurt a lot.
We prefer the term private military contractors. Don't knock it. Everyone needs an exit strategy eventually.
Not me. Shield's my life now.
SHIELD isn't a life. It's just a job. Means to an end. Remember that.
Which foreshadows kind of like what's going to have to happen to her later on in the season, where she's going to have to choose between SHIELD or Afterlife, the Inhumans, her mom. And of course, it's interesting also when you think about Lance Hunter's arc here. It's like, here we are at the beginning, very much not into SHIELD or what it stands for, but he makes the ultimate sacrifice to protect the SHIELD and his friends in season 3, he and Bobby, when they agreed to take the bullet in the fiasco that happened with the Russian prime minister. If you don't remember what I'm talking about, that's in season 3. That's the episode where they're made to leave the team.
It's called carbine. An allotrope of carbon found in stardust. 3 times harder than diamond. With an added bonus. It can store energy.
It's really interesting how Creel cannot resist those kind of rare gems. It's like giving a jawbreaker to Ed and Eddie. It's like that's how they need it.
Looks like you need some help there, Mr. Creel.
I'm not the one.
Also, it was a giveaway. Creel touched her, and she's fine. That's a clue.
Someone sent a message.
A message for us with a phone number to call.
Yeah, it could be Creel.
Creel?
I wonder who that could be.
What, is he lonely?
I doubt it. The guy's jacked, and he can turn any body part into any material.
Okay.
Oh, God. But I mean, hey, I'm glad they went there.
Because part of me wants you here running back end. The other part knows we need boots on the ground, and I've only got a few good pairs.
I'll be good. Scout's honor.
The look Coulson gave. It's like, the fuck do you know about the Boy Scouts? And I'm sure Coulson was in the Scouts.
It's all about the Resident. I didn't solve this.
Something's about to happen here. Mac gets one of the biggest laughs he gets in the whole show right now. If you remember what happens.
Right now, we just got to focus on taking down Creel. Oh, calm the hell down. Hey, beat it. You pissed him off.
I love that.
You saw this before?
Yes.
You looking for an old design?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, okay.
By the way, I'm glad that they didn't have any lines, but S.H.I.E.L.D. at least had a couple of other science people on the payroll, so they're not entirely relying on Fitz, but that way they have other people doing the menial work, just in case anyone had any questions on that. And that the design, that was do you know what that is?
Yeah, the one from his and Ward's mission.
Yes,
wasn't it?
the
Yeah.
hub. Yeah.
Let's put a name to that face.
Let the exchange happen. Sky and Hunter follow the new player. May stay with Creel. Everyone copy?
I like, by the way, how you see Coulson is like not staying still. He's like walking away, and I wonder, like, why is he walking? Like, where's he going to? Usually, he's just like standing still, and he's like operating from the office. I think that was their signal to tell us he's going somewhere important because he's seeing something coming.
Hell no.
That was a good reaction, though.
Oh yeah, I forgot that one. Like, oh hell no. Again, the humor. Look, they always bring a lot of really good humor to the episodes. Like, I'm telling you, I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s sense of humor is far more memorable, and I'm just gonna say it, funnier and more sincere than anything in the MCU. I'm not saying the MCU wasn't funny. It had plenty of good jokes and also lighthearted humor and heart humor. But I don't know. I think S.H.I.E.L.D. knew they just had the perfect balance of everything that they needed. It wasn't just people joking around like saying, "Look how ridiculous this is." I mean, and they do say that, but there are also plenty of sincere moments too. This is a cool visual. It's kind of ridiculous. Oh, maybe not ridiculous, but it's like I love this part. I love this part right here. So he saw it coming just with enough time, and
yeah,
and it's a really cool effect again with the absorbing man here. And like how like Lance just like ditched the damn thing, and it's like now he's running for his life. And then of course, look who's slipped in here. Where did the obelisk go? Raina's just like, Raina's not even running. Did you see that? She's just like. So Coulson doesn't necessarily leave because he saw Hunter doing this. I think he left to deliver that weapon. So he's the only one to ever come back from that, because his DNA is going to break that down eventually.
Yeah.
You're never a Boy Scout, were you?
Breaking into cars now?
This scene right here is very important. for like what value Coulson sees in Hunter. Also, keep in mind there is somebody in his ear reminding him that there's good in Hunter here, that we haven't met her yet.
Mm-hmm.
You need warm bodies, is that it?
I need skilled assets in the field who are willing to step over the line, to do the wrong thing, but for the right reason. I need you because I can't be you. Not anymore.
Yeah, well, you're better off.
What I like about this is that Coulson actively understands the need to have agents that were kind of like him, that would step over the line and do the wrong thing for the right reasons. He understands the value of that it can't just be an organization full of obedient soldiers all of the time. He needs people to think for themselves and think more critically about situations the way that he did every episode of season 1. Now that he is the man in charge, he can't be that anymore.
It worked.
No. It let you live. And there's a difference.
Show me. Please.
Bring me my daughter. And I'll show the both of you.
He's so cool.
Right? Oh, I love this scene. This is one of my favorite scenes. This has to be one of my favorite Coulson scenes. I remember when I was watching this, I'm like, wow, you go, Coulson.
Mm-hmm.
You go. Do you remember this one or no?
No.
Oh, you're going to see right now.
You must have some big brass ones, Coulson. Coming out here by yourself to meet me, face to face, no backup.
Let's get out of here before the iceberg runs out of fuel.
I mean, come on, what a boss move what that was. And there we are. Look, I can say so many times I love this season. I love this season. I love this season, but I love this season so much. And these 2 episodes are just another reminder. Again, this season is already off to such a great start. Like, I can't honestly, can you think of anything here that didn't work for you at all? Like, I think everything worked in the level that it should have.
Mm-hmm, for sure. I was looking back on some notes that I had, because I was like, it was really bothering me. Like, how do I not remember this season so much? Like, it's so weird, and the notes that I saw, it was dated 2020. So that was like the last time I saw this season in 2020, which, I mean, we all know what happened. And a lot of things happened. So I'm kind of
2020 was like the longest year of our lives. Like
Yeah.
so much happened in 2020. It was like 2 years or 3 years in 1 year.
So technically it's been 6 years then since I saw
Yeah.
it. So, and then the notes that I had though, I kept track of like some of my favorite episodes. And I put this one as one of my favorites.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it makes sense why, because for one thing, Fitz, everything about him, everything that he goes through in this season for sure was a standout for me. And I just love they just instantly built up the relationship between him and Mac for sure. Yeah. And everything else, it just gets moving from the very beginning of, trying to build up some of these other characters, trying to move forward with the ones that we didn't see in the last one, like Reyna and everything. It's just, they know what to do. Like, I feel like in this moment right here, like they know exactly where to go with this, with these characters, with this plot and everything. So it's just peak.
it is, and you get the sense like you're just like, you just find yourself surrendering to it completely, where it's like, okay, I'm on this ride, take me wherever you want, because you do know how to play me. Like, it's and I mean that in a very positive way, mind you. Yeah. Let's go ahead and go to Amwan's reaction.
Woo! I loved that. That was a really fun episode, dude. I really enjoyed it, man. Like, picking up right after the events of the last episode, just carrying us forward with this, with Creel, who was just kind of running amok, trying to get this thing to a buyer, trying to get help for whatever exchange or deal he was trying to make with Hydra to help with the situation, but having touched the obelisk, thinking that he would be immune to it if he just kind of shaped his body or morphed his body to another material. But it's way more complicated than that. But it worked its way into his system in a way that he couldn't necessarily get rid of it, but he was able to willfully wield it after their little exchange, after absorbing that. I don't know if it had any direct implication or involvement in why it changed, but prior to, like he was just like, I can't do anything with this before that. But then Raina brought that ring with that special star material, and then after he absorbed that, everything on him seemed to go back to normal. That was just how I read the scene. I may have read it wrong, but that's the way it looked to me when I was watching it. Because after that, he wasn't afflicting that to other people by accident or by intent until he could willfully do it when he was like, hey, and he summoned that crystal into his hand, that obelisk crystal into the palm of his hand when he was going to put that onto Hunter. Is that his name? He was going to be like, all right, this is going to be painful, before Coulson shut him down. And that was a wicked little thing. I like the way they kind of depicted his powers and stuff like that. I really like the effects. And then when he started cycling through that with that little device that they retrofit. I don't remember which episode that device was from. It was a previous design. They just had to change it up to match this scenario. I recognize some of the other ones when they were flipping through Fitz's old schematics. I just didn't recognize that one. So fill me in. I'm very curious. Which one was that from? I just don't remember. But that whole thing, like with everybody else not necessarily knowing what he's going through or what he's experiencing because he's keeping all of that to himself. And I don't know, because there was that scene towards the back half where I don't know if he's aware, because they said it to his face, you know, blah, 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 how's this been doing since Simmons left or whatever. They said something about Simmons having left, and he looked over across the way to the Simmons that he's been seeing, but he's also, we know that he's not able to hone in on things as much as he used to by any stretch of the imagination at this point. So I don't know if he knows that she's not there, or he's just not accepting that she's not there, or if he's just like, what are you talking about? She's over there. I don't know how to read that, because I don't know how he read that, to be honest, either, because the entire time too, when he was confronting him, he was like, hey man, I understand this. Sometimes I talk to myself too. And he's like, I'm not talking to myself. Simmons is right there. But he didn't say anything because he didn't want to sound like he was lesser. He didn't want to sound like he was out of the loop or anything like that. You know, give them more ammo to use for him to kind of feel bad about himself. So he didn't respond to that statement, and rather ignored it while questioning. And you can see in his face, he's wondering why they're not acknowledging Simmons, while Simmons is also kind of acknowledging themselves as well. It's so heartbreaking. But it also, like I said in the reaction, is that Simmons is like this repository, this kind of figment of his imagination that has kind of manifested in all the things that he can't connect with right now. He has all of these answers, because if she's in his head, those answers are in his head. And she's always got the answers that he's trying to find, but she's not willfully handing them over either. So it's almost like his brain is trying to help exercise him into finding those answers himself, like, and work his way to finding them. But it's also a representation of how he's disconnected from those very same thought processes. Like, that train of thought should easily be able to get from point A to point B, but now there's like an extra pit stop that is added, this extra checkpoint that he's got to wrestle with to get to those answers. Like, he's talking to the answers. She gives him the answers sometimes, even as well. So they're there, they're in his head, but he just can't reach them. It is so heartbreaking, man. Like I said before, I assume most of this will probably be in the reaction and stuff like by the end of it. But like, you know, I've had two grandparents both suffer with Alzheimer's, and that terrifies the shit out of me. I'm already forgetful as all hell, and sometimes extremely absent-minded, because I'm always thinking ahead of things. I'm always thinking about other stuff I've got going on. And I don't know if that's going to be detrimental to me in the long run, but I'm very rarely present, I think, is a lot of the problem, unless I'm locked into a chair and doing these reactions. That's the most I'm ever present. Or if I'm sitting down playing a game, or if I'm sitting down watching a movie at the theater or something like that. Any other stretch of the day, I'm thinking of work. I'm thinking about the next day. I'm thinking about the other stuff. I'm like always outside of myself. But like that aside, I've seen people go down this road. I've seen those early signs, and it's so terrifying for the person and frustrating for the person, and honestly just heartbreaking for everybody else around them. But nobody knows exactly. They know that he's not 100%. They know that he's got issues, that he's got brain damage, that there's something wrong, but they don't really know just how much of a struggle he's going through. I don't think so. Like they can't see it from his perspective, but the sad thing is, I don't think he really knows just how bad it is as well. It's just scary. But I like that, like, no matter what, everybody is trying their best to help him along. Even this other guy that was helping him, and like honestly getting a little too, forward and a little too harsh, I think, given the circumstances. I do think he got a little too tough lovey with somebody who's just so beyond themselves right now. It worked itself out in the end, but I don't remember that guy's name, the guy that helped retrofit that device. I do like that there's somebody on the team at least that's able to at least take what Fitz is trying to say and run with it a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a very frustrating situation. We got that realization with May is aware of what has been going with Coulson, but again, it just shows that we haven't learned all the lessons that we should have from season 1 because we're putting up these walls and these secrets and these barriers again. And I get it. Compartmentalization, they're running a different thing. We need to kind of keep things from bleeding out. But it's Sky, and that same shit is running through her, and maybe that's part of the reason he's keeping her at arm's length. But I don't know. I feel like she should know what's going on. But she knows something's off. She knows he's keeping himself at arm's length with her, and I think it's because these episodes have now started, because of this information that he's got about what Project Tahiti involves and entails, and May's trying to keep him, at least do her mission, follow through on that and help him keep an eye. And I'm glad that he's allowing her to do that as well, documenting these episodes that he has where he breaks down and has to exercise all this information that is just parsing through his head. He's got to get it out of him or he'll go crazy, like they said. His mind will break down. So I'm glad he's not completely alone in this. We have this mercenary Hunter, I believe, if I remember right, that was his name, the survivor of that little trifecta that helped them along with Lucy Lawless. He joined them all for his own aims to kind of get revenge on what happened, the people that he lost. Again, he's not a believer in the mission, and that's why I was really shocked when he kind of was like, hey, go, finish, do this. Clearly, he thought that May was going to take out Creel because that's who she was after, and she wanted to, but Coulson called her off. So I kind of get that too. It was all about getting the guy that got his team. And then that's why he almost made a deal with Talbot and was kind of weighing his options in a way when he went back to S.H.I.E.L.D. and said, hey, I shook his guys, but hey, he offered me this. What do you got for me? And then he tested those waters in a way to get back in the field because he knew they would probably have an eye on where Creel was so that he could take another shot at the guy. Now, Raina's got the obelisk, and she's back with Sky's father, and we see that she's able to wield it and not be affected by it. But he says that it's chosen not to hurt her, maybe because it sees her for what she is, because she did say that her and Shy share a very similar genetic connection. And we know that plays a part into her being an 084, this being the first 084 and being tied to all that stuff. And it's like linked to the stuff that Coulson is spewing out of his brain. I do think it's so weird, though, that Simmons would just up and leave like that, though. That kind of breaks my heart a little bit. I'd like to hear her side of it, but like they said, it was like, I can't believe Simmons left, or whatever. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I can't either. Like, it just seems like I don't know. I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens. I'm sure the real Simmons will make her way back into the picture eventually, but I do like that they're still keeping, obviously, the actress involved because it's a fun little change up and shake up in the role that she's playing and the dynamic within the team to do what they're doing this way. Anyway, I don't know.
So that was, again, trying to document. This is, again, Amwan's reactions are from the perspective of someone who's watching this in 2024. Now let's get to some perspectives from 2014 as they first aired, and they're not as positive, interestingly enough, as I think they could be. Some are, some are not. James Hunt from Den of Geek thought that the problem with this week's episode was that it was broadly the second part of last week's rather than its own thing.
But it's a show.
That's right. By the way, wasn't one of the mainstream complaints of season 1 was that too many episodes were their own thing and not part of a larger piece, and now all of a sudden everything's upside down now because it's like part 2 of the last episode. What? He continues, as well as picking up seconds after that one finished, it also continued and resolved many of the plot threads introduced, establishing the show's operating status quo in the they're the first 2 episodes of a season.
Yeah.
You're just describing what first episodes do in shows like these. He says, if it wasn't intended to be the back half of a feature-length episode, it does a very good impression of it. He called McLaughlin's performance the biggest moment of the episode and felt that it's tempting to say that his appearance was anticlimactic, but there's got to be more going on than we're shown, so I'm willing to reserve judgment. Okay. Eric Goldman of IGN scored the episode 8.5 out of 10 and praised the development of the Hunter and Mac characters, feeling that Hunter especially was given some good material as we learned of his military-turned-mercenary background, and we got to understand more about Mac being a mechanic, asked to do a job he's not quite qualified for and who's confident enough to admit that. Goldman felt that the episode continued to show off an improved series, boasting better pacing and a stronger overall tone, and praised the single-scene appearance of McLaughlin. Alan Sepinwall of HitFix stated that the show hasn't reached peak capacity yet, but right now we're in the introductory phase in terms of story arcs and characters, and Heavy is the Head did a fine job at that, particularly on the character end, while also offering up more cool absorbing man action. He praised the character development, especially the changes to those from the first season, but criticized the focus on non-character related story arcs, saying that the one lesson I hope the creative team had learned from last year is that the character arcs are a lot more interesting when they're about who the characters are rather than what they are. What?
Say it again? That last
part? He praised character development, especially the changes to those from the first season, but he criticized the focus on non-character related story arcs, saying, so I guess he's saying that right now the show is more focused on story arcs versus character arcs. But there was plenty of character stuff in this episode.
Yeah, but also it's the second episode. There is no arc. Like, we're still setting it up.
Yes, but I interpret it more as like, okay, I think he's saying more specifically at the job that this episode was only doing story stuff, like setting things up, and was not really doing anything character related. But there's a bunch of character in this episode.
Yeah, there's a lot of character stuff, especially with Hunter,
Fitz, Mac, Sky, Coulson. I mean,
well, with Sky and Coulson, that's more so setup, but for sure, Hunter, Fitz, and Mac.
Yeah,
and that's mainly because those are like the biggest. Those are two characters that are new, and one who has like the biggest change out of everyone else. You know, you don't need to really see much with Sky as to what's changed with her. Like, that beginning scene. It's like she comes in, she's the backup there. That's all you need to know, that this is her now, you know? And then May and Coulson, there's just no changes at all with both of them, really. Other than they're just setting up that they're hiding stuff from Sky, the whole team, really. And that will come ahead later on, but, you know, that's an obvious thing that will happen because that's how TV shows work.
Yeah, give me a second. I want to make sure let's see. I want to make sure I have the full one for this one. It's Heavy as the Head is the episode. Give me 1 second. Oliver Sava for AV Club. Let's see here. Well, it looks like we're going to get interesting stuff here. He begins his review by saying, "Who is Lance Hunter and why are we supposed to care about him?" Okay. This week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. dedicates a lot of time to the cast's scruffy addition, but his character doesn't amount to much more than British bad boy Ward at this point. Did Oliver Sava write this or did Silva Surfer write this? I'm kidding with you, but I'm like, okay. I guess there's some balance here. Let's see the other perspective. He's a hard-drinking mercenary who plays by his own rules, and it's a generic role that needs more personality and specificity in order to captivate. He has to overcome an obstacle that nearly all the main characters on this show have faced at some point, and hopefully the writers will build on Lance's uninspired foundation and make him a fully formed person instead of just a cog in the show's plot machine. Okay. We're supposed to feel bad for Lance because his old partner Isabel Hartley is dead, but their relationship has barely formed in the season premiere, so there's not much emotional commitment there. The show's PR team really hyped up the appearance of Lucy Lawless as Hartley, so it's disappointing to find out that her character is officially out of the picture after not doing much of anything in the short time she had. It looks like the writers were banking on Lawless's built-in fan appeal to get viewers to care about the character so that her death would have greater impact. But losing Isabel before we really get a chance to see Lawless kick some ass makes her guest appearance feel like a missed opportunity. No love lost there. Lance is caught between S.H.I.E.L.D. and the U.S. military. Okay, this is just more recap. I'm going to go to the... Okay. My issue with the focus on Lance is that it takes time away from the core cast members, who still don't have very much to do. Sky and May are mostly just standing around, being worried about Coulson.
Again, though, it's a television show. Like, the episode literally ends with him going like, "Family, my daughter," and it's just like, I wonder if that's gonna like take up the entire season. So it's fine to not have them do much right now because. But
even if they're not having much focus, I mean, they're still. I think they're not literally just standing doing nothing. They're being great agents in various different. I mean, we're still expanding on Sky's whole new there's new dimensions to her character. She's now a fully fledged agent that's in the field, and like she's no longer like. First of all, we began last week with her being backup, right? Now she's like in the main like lineup of like go-to S.H.I.E.L.D. field agents. Like she's in the field and she's proving herself like, and you don't need to like focus too much on that. You just have to show it, and you're seeing that happen. And of course, we open with May in that amazing sequence outdoors on the bike, and it's like that's all serving a point.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting to see the characters that you love, and they're growing, they're being cool, and it's like, is that nothing?
Mm-hmm.
But okay. He said it would be nice to get some idea of what direction their characters will be moving in. They did give you an idea with Sky in that discussion she had with Hunter. Because, like, why is Sky still here? S.H.I.E.L.D. is my family now. Well, for how long is that going to be true? And Lance kind of teases to her, S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't a life. It's a job. And then, of course, she's going to have to herself come to grips with that later on in the season. He says Sky has the benefit of being directly attached to a few of the show's ongoing mysteries, one of which gets some serious momentum. But May needs meatier material. May is the team's muscle and Coulson's main ally, but that's essentially who she was last season. Skye mentions that everyone has changed, but how has May? This is a woman who devoted her life to S.H.I.E.L.D. and suffered more trauma because of that dedication. How has she been affected by the revelation that her organization was an extension of the... Ming-Na Wen is an actress with a lot of more depth than she gets to exhibit on this show, and the writers should start giving her material that takes advantage of that emotional range. That's going to happen, but again, this is a TV show with a lot of main characters. There are going to be episodes where some characters get more focus than others, I think is the response to that. And you're right, Oliver, in 2014, Oliver, they should use May more, and they do, in fact, as the show goes on. He says that Mac plays substitute for Simmons in the lab. While I'm sure the depiction of Fitz's brain damage has little basis in actual medical fact, I do like how, I think he's probably, I'm not sure that's true. I do like how the missing bits of his intellect have manifested as Simmons. It's a clever way of showing that those parts of his mind are still accessible in some capacity. Says Raina's cool. Carl McLaughlin makes his debut as an unnamed character, revealed he's playing Skye's dad. We don't know who he is or who he's working for, but he's sweaty, disheveled, and has some sort of influence over Raina, convincing her that she should touch the freshly retrieved obelisk despite its tendency to kill whoever it comes into contact with. But Raina doesn't die when she touches the obelisk. Instead, the object lights up and starts showing all these symbols that look a lot like the carvings Coulson has been etching onto the walls whenever he has an episode. How is this all connected? The obelisk was found in the same raid that also put a blue alien in S.H.I.E.L.D. custody, so it's easy to assume that there's some connection there. But how does Skye figure into all of this? The mystery has me genuinely interested in where this season goes, and hopefully the question won't be tediously dragged out like in the first season. Although, he says, the visual style of this show remains utterly dull, from the locations to the fight choreography to the camera work. Every setting has a standard, somewhere around Los Angeles appearance, and all the environments in this episode look like places this show has visited before. The fight choreography isn't particularly impressive, and the direction doesn't do much to make the action more dynamic, with one major exception this week. When Lance goes after Creel, he shoots him with a high-caliber sniper rifle, blah, blah, blah. The kind of directorial flair is what this show needs more of, and I would love to see this show's camera and design crews work together to create a more visually engaging experience. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if I can say more about that. Let's go to the second clip we have here. This is the discussion by Jamie Durack and Brett, not to be confused with Brett Dalton. Brett appeared on the show, and they have a conversation about what they remember about the episode in the context of they've watched every episode, so they're now just like talking about what it was like to revisit this episode.
Is he gone?
Hi. He's gone.
Hi.
Okay, I have some few things to talk about. First of all, it's funny where, like, in retrospect, like, the first time I watched this, I was seeing Mac in a very different way. But now that I know him, I know that he's just like a dad. He's Dad Mac. He's just like really good at being a dad, and it's sad because we know, the sadness of his child and all that we learned in season 4.
Yes. Yeah.
But
it's just, I mean, just the trajectory of Mac, seeing him at the beginning, it's really something, because you realize what got him along the trajectory was that kindness and that empathy and that patience and that toughness, mixed in with all of that. And it's just so cool to see it in its kind of prototype form.
Yeah, God, I just love him so much. We also have to, of course, Hunter talking about his psychotic ex-wife. We are 3 weeks away from Bobby.
Oh, I thought it was a longer stretch. Oh, that's
No,
so.
episode
I was
5.
wondering like how
Yeah,
long
she's
of
coming up.
ex-wife.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
I'm excited. Like, I don't think Tony's gonna really care because I don't think he like is like a comic, like a Mockingbird fan in that way, and I don't think he like really knows
Girl.
Adrian, but he's gonna be excited just to see a hot lady.
Like that Mockingbird. I was a huge West Coast Avengers reader, and that was a
Mhm.
team that consisted of Iron Man, Moon Knight, Vision, Scarlet Witch, and Mockingbird. And she had those bell sleeves that I think I've showed you pictures of in the past. Her
Mhm.
giant bell sleeves that she. Oh, Bobby Morse coming into the show, I'll never forget. It was one of the greatest moments of my life.
I love that. How do you feel about the fact that Hawkeye kind of gave Laura her number? Like,
Yeah,
like does
I don't hate
I
it.
don't. Mhm.
I don't hate it. I because never did I think that Jeremy Renner and oh god, oh my goodness, I forget her name. She played Wonder Woman once in a failed pilot. Adrian
Oh,
Pilecki.
Adrian Pilecki, yeah. Mm.
Who
Thank you.
plays Bobby
Yeah.
on the show.
Yeah.
Never did I think that those two were gonna like have any sort of history. So I like that they gave Hawkeye an Agent 13. I like that they gave Hawkeye
Mhm.
a Mockingbird. I also never really thought Bobby Morse was like there was nothing Mockingbird ever suggested. So in the MCU, I think Bobby Morse and Mockingbird are two separate characters, and I think Linda Cardellini is Mockingbird.
That's fair. I to me, and like even
Yeah.
if they were multiple people have the same moniker, it's some people
Yeah.
were upset about it. It didn't bother me personally.
It didn't bother me.
And, you know, yeah. Let's see. Oh, I was trying to like obviously Hunter and Sky is never a thing. I was just trying to
It's
throw
so
Tony
not
off.
a thing. Oh my god,
I,
it's so
I
funny.
have
No,
to
I can.
I have to confuse him.
Yeah, I had the same thought. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, we can play with like, oh, will they, won't they, with Tony, with Hunter and Sky for sure.
Uh-huh.
But can you
Why
imagine?
not? I know. I'd be pretty hot. I thought Creel was inhuman. But I forgot he's not. That's why the obelisk is fucking him up. But it
Exactly.
still makes sense because he did pick it up as with rubber. So the fact that it's like acting, it like all of that makes sense. Because I actually was looking on Reddit and people were confused at the time. But I think it
Yeah.
makes sense. He's not an inhuman, but because of his powers, that's why it all got wonky. He got his
It
powers.
got a little wonky.
Yeah, he was one of the Von Strucker experiments in the MCU universe, which I like.
Oh, interesting. Okay, very cool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've realized that. That's awesome. I like that they gave him
I
that
didn't
kind
know
of
that
MCU
either.
origin.
Huh.
I feel because I forgot Creel comes back in like heavily in season 5, and that's when
Von Strucker is
Made
the guy
Wanda
that yes.
Right.
Yeah. Raina saying what we become, of course,
Oof.
that is huge because that's
Yeah.
I obviously like I'm also like, oh, wait until Trip becomes a series regular because I'm trying to throw Tony off that scent too. Sadly, BJ Britt is not going to become a series regular. Tragically.
No. He's going to become motivation. He's going to be almost refrigerated, almost, to use a comics term. But that doesn't apply to men. So.
No, it doesn't. But still,
No, it doesn't.
it is sad. It is sad.
It
but
is,
like
yeah, it's
I
very
always
sad.
say, good TV hurts. I love when they kill people off because it makes me sad.
Yeah, and it gave tragedy
Yeah.
to the origin story, which is a needed element.
100%. There's been some debate in the comments. So, Brett, Deke or Hunter?
Oh wow! Oh my god!
You
This
know
is
my answer.
stressful. This is stressful.
I hate that question.
My heart's Deke.
It's with
It's
Deke.
Deke.
I know. I get
I would
like
go with
people
Deke,
hate
though.
him because he like sold her to slavery. I'm sorry. I don't care. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like I love Deke's my favorite character. I can't help it. I love Hunter, but I'm picking Deke every time. I'm a sucker.
I'll go with Deke too. I like Hunter a lot, but Deke, come on, how can you not like Deke?
Choose. Why make you choose between my children? I mean, it's funny. I love Hunter, but so much of why I love Hunter is because I love Hunter being half of a thing that I love, whereas
yeah.
Deke is Deke. So
I know. We will ride
Deke
or
just
die for Deke till at the end of time.
yeah, he just shines a little brighter.
Well, anything else spoilery that you wanted to bring up?
Well, just this represents kind of a really tough time for me in terms of Marvel because I knew Inhumans was coming, and part of the reason I knew Inhumans was coming was because, and I could be just mushing this all up in my memory, but this was also around the time where I believe it was Ike Perlmutter who owned Marvel. This was pre-Disney, obviously, who owned Marvel, who replaced the X-Men with the Inhumans. He made an active effort to remove any X-Men characters from any sort of licensing. So, and downplay them in the books. So the Inhumans were taking front stage. They were upstaging the X-Men in the comics big time. There was even like classic shots. Like there's a classic from the old Secret Wars series, a classic cover that was made into a very like a prolific T-shirt, where in the foreground you've got Rogue and Wolverine. And I remember, I forget who Rogue was replaced with, but Wolverine was replaced with Iron Fist. And I was like, wow, they are really removing the X-Men from Marvel Comics. And in their place was this big push for the Inhumans. And it made me so angry and sad. And so this big Inhumans push going on with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was kind of reflective of that. And it was a tough time. It was a tough time to be an X fan.
But look at us now. Look, like now it's the best time to be
But
an
look at us
X-Men
now.
fan.
Exactly.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
all thriving. And I've never even seen the Inhuman show. When Anson Mount showed up in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, I was like, who the fuck is that guy?
Girl, it's worth a watch because it's
I know.
so fucking bad. It's so fucking bad.
I think we'll cover it on the Patreon eventually, just to you know.
Yes, and please, oh my god, it's oh my god.
We'll have you.
I could go.
Sure.
I could talk about it. But you'll be like, I don't know what that is, but it's
Yeah,
just so bad.
yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much. It's always like any excuse to talk Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with you. We've talked about this when you were on before, but 2 weeks from now is Face My Enemy, and that is the episode that I watched at your house that got me back into S.H.I.E.L.D. So almost 10 years ago, you helped me fall back in line, and here we are today, 10 years later. I know.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
Crazy. I know.
Oh, that's
Time is
crazy.
wild.
I'm gonna judge your guest host very harshly in 2 weeks.
We are actually. I'm hoping for someone cool that week. Like, we'll see.
Oh, someone I know.
No, like someone shieldy. But I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. I don't want to
Don't get your hopes up, everybody.
No, because I have made. I don't want to make any promises. But we've got 7 years to get good people on this show. But Brett's good people. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Really cool interaction there. I think to me the thing that I enjoyed most from that was just like I guess it was a fan question. I think in the back of my mind at some point I was like thinking, yeah, Deke or Hunter. Deke is just, I'm sorry, like when you say Deke, it brings a smile into my face. It's just like he's just so lovable. And the thing is, like, also you gotta keep in mind this. I know Silva really and Silva they check themselves as part of the minority when it comes to how people feel about Hunter. Okay, but I remember being in the trenches, like season 5, 6, and 7, and a lot of fans hated Deke, and I'm like, how can you hate him? How? He's so likable. I don't know. But yeah, it's really, and then also what Brett was talking about there with like what was happening in the comics, as Ike Perlmutter was making a concentrated decision to remove the X-Men from the storylines because in his mind, he was going to coerce Kevin Feige into actually doing an MCU movie of the Inhumans. Remember, it was even announced, I want to say this year, 10 years ago, that there was going to be an Inhumans movie and that it was going to star Vin Diesel. I think that was part of the announcement, and it was part of all these other things being announced at the exact same time. And the plan anyway was to introduce them through Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then they would go on to the movie. But then Ike Perlmutter pushed his luck too many times and was forcing Kevin Feige to really go behind his back because Ike Perlmutter refused to commit any money into Black Panther or Captain Marvel because in his eyes, black people and women are not financially feasible to invest in when it comes to the box office. And that was one of the... I mean, that... alone should really tell you who he is as a person and how smart he is, which was not very smart. Kevin Feige went to Bob Iger. Bob Iger basically said, Kevin, you're right. Ike, get the fuck away. He doesn't have to report to you anymore. He reports to me. And because of that fateful decision, Kevin Feige just refused to acknowledge anything when it came to Marvel Entertainment, which unfortunately would result in any of the shows that Jeff Loeb would be running to be acknowledged on the movies. And at that point, that decision killed the Inhumans movie, which is something that I think Kevin Feige never really wanted to do. And then that led to Ike Perlmutter insisted on Inhumans, and so he was like, he told Jeff Loeb, you got to make this show. We're going to make it into a show now. And what came is still to date one of the biggest disasters I've ever seen. It was a collaboration between Marvel Entertainment, ABC, and IMAX. What a humiliating disaster and chapter that was. And the less said, the better about that. With that being said, I think we're going to go ahead and end it off there. Thank you all so much. We will read your comments from last episode and this episode next time, I want to say, right? I think. Who knows? Let's not, I'm not going to get promises. Yeah. We will read the episodes. We will read the comments, from episode 1 next time. I'm not even sure when the next time is that we're going to record, so there's that. But thank you all for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.